Welcome to the first ever episode of the Pyramid Pod. I'm your host, Braden Lockwood.
I'm your co-host, Elizabeth Sloan.
And so we wanted to start this podcast just to open up a space for dialogue about spiritual issues, philosophical ideas, conspiracies, the whole shebang, and just have kind of an open space to entertain ideas and to hear out other people's truths and maybe learn something about yourself in the process. So we're really looking forward to where this goes. And we're going to start today just by kind of telling you our story and letting you get to know us a little better. So I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1997. And I grew to love living in Utah just because there's so much natural beauty as well as like community. And so that's where kind of my childhood started. And then when I was in 7th grade, my stepdad got a job in Washington. And so we picked up and moved across the country to Washington State. And then I went to middle school, high school, pretty normal. Liked engineering, liked math. So I decided to go to Cal Poly for college. And that's where things got way more interesting.
What did you get your degree in?
I got my degree in mechanical engineering. So with a concentration in renewable energy. And I actually just got that degree this last spring. So it's been very nice not having schoolwork, not dealing with midterms, all of that, and just focusing on the business. But yeah, so I'll jump into kind of where my personal awakening kind of started, or at least where I pinpoint that moment. You know, we're always awakening, but there are definitely some shifts around sophomore, junior year, like 2017, 2018, when I got a lot of pretty intense downloads and just really shifted my perspective on life. And as my perspective shifted, my life also shifted as it is. And so, yeah, just kind of set the scene. I was a pretty normal college frat boy. I liked partying.
You were like the ultimate frat boy. What was the award you won? What was that award?
I was the social chair for the fraternity. So when I started my awakening, I was working with a $25,000 budget, just throwing parties for fraternity, for Greek life. And I was having a lot of fun with it, for sure. I enjoy some parts of party culture, but then there was still something like missing from my life, I found. So I kind of went on this search for purpose. And that's where it all got a little bit more interesting. I kind of came to terms with the fact that I wasn't very passionate about my schoolwork, about engineering, and I kind of had to face that through some internships and just some experiences with teachers and just the education system, and feeling like I got into engineering because I thought it would be a creative yet like academic outlet for me. And then kind of had to come to terms with the realization that there really was, like, I felt like I was being pigeonholed into like 4 or 5 career paths, none of which really inspired me creatively to go give it my all. And so then I kind of realized, okay, if I want something different from life, then I can't just be frustrated by a lack of opportunity through the education system. I can create opportunities for myself. And so that's when I decided to start a business, start a company. And so, yeah, I actually remember when I first started Pyramid Realm, I didn't have the name picked out, but I had just started getting into some research of things that I'm interested in. I was looking into Tesla, UFOs, the ancient pyramids, all the good stuff. And I knew I wanted to make a website to kind of organize my thoughts. And I went on to GoDaddy because it was just whatever site I knew for domains. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to call my company. And I typed in pyramid because I was like, that's one thing I know I like pyramids. I know I want to talk about pyramids, ancient pyramids, make pyramids.
Sit on one.
yeah, all things pyramid related. And so, yeah, so I typed in pyramid, and like the fourth result down was pyramid realm. And I was like, that sits right with me. Was like, was calling out to me. So I was like, okay, we're going to be pyramid realm. And I actually, I had doubts at that moment because I went to pay and it cost like $27 to buy the domain and run it for a year. And at the time I was just thinking like, that's so much. Like I was a broke college kid. Like I was living one Chipotle burrito at a time. But so I decided not to. I closed my laptop and I walked out. I was like, I don't need to take this on. I don't need to deal with the social repercussions of discussing psychedelics and aliens. I don't need to have that impact my professional career, yada yada. And I walked outside, and I remember literally like the second I walked out of the building, I saw like a crumpled up piece of paper like 15 yards away, and a bunch of people were walking by it, but I just like fixated on it the second I left. And as I walked closer to the paper, I realized it was a folded up $20 bill. And so I like leaned over and picked it up, and I was pretty much like, okay, universe, you win. Like I'll do this. I'll see what happens. I'll give it my all. And from there, I built out a website, just like almost like it was like my mind, you know, like I was doing all this research and I was constantly like looping back to similar concepts, but with like more in-depth understanding. Um, and as I did, I kept building out the website and buying new books and like really getting. It's funny. Like once I was done with my formal education, it was like my real education had begun, and so I got really passionate about truth seeking and taking the time to.
So there's like book smart and then there's street smart. What would you consider this smart?
This smart is some blend, maybe just like uh, consciously aware, something, a little bit of both. But it might be closer to street smart. More,
I think so too.
it's applicable knowledge. And so I got really into my research, really into building out the message of what I wanted my company to say, which I had to ask myself that too. You know, I knew I wanted to say something with the company at the time, but I was very young and very idealistic, still am, but I knew I wanted to advocate for more open-mindedness. I wanted to kind of empower creativity and imagination again, you know, to get back in touch with our inner child that is not like so like
The inner child that's not naive but is so malleable to learn new things and excited about
yes,
the
like
wonder of the reality.
that. I like that word a lot, wonder. I think people lose that, especially when they become too rigidly attached to a belief system or to an ideology. They lose that sense of wonder that there's always going to be new like wonderful things to understand and to research and to discover and to get back in touch with that. Like I think so much of modern society has,
It takes away our eyes.
yeah, it sells this illusion that we have it all figured out, you know, like people go into school and they stop thinking, they stop being curious because they assume that all the coolest stuff that we know as a race, we've figured it all out, and B, we're being taught everything that we know in our education system, and both of those are just like way off the mark. Honestly, we don't know what this crazy wild universe is. There's lots of mysteries and secrets,
Absolutely.
and B, the things we do know are very well hidden from the education system. So so that kind of started me off on a path of discovery and adventure and entrepreneurship. And it it was also a process of self mastery. You know, you like I knew when I started the business that there were going to be times when I didn't feel like I had a lot of support from the people in my life so much, especially with the nature of what I wanted to do. I definitely got a lot of kickback from friends, from family, from people that meant well but were struggling to understand where I was coming from everyone, from teachers, and I knew that if I really wanted to make this life that I'd imagined for myself real, that I had to let go of
External validation and knowing
let
that
go of external value, like to fall so in love with my own journey that I didn't care how other people perceived it, because that's when I was able to really, like, I don't know, that's where I found freedom. That's what freedom was to me, is that it was like a green light to just follow my heart and my curiosity and just see where it took me, knowing on some higher level that it was going to take me exactly where I wanted to go, because those emotions we have of curiosity, of excitement, wonder, I think that's God to me. That's like, those are the signs of where you should align with your purpose. Those things that nag at you, that like
you're naturally drawn towards
yeah,
them.
like you the
Almost
second
like defying nature if you don't go towards it.
yeah, the second I saw Nikola Tesla, I was like, I love Nikola Tesla and everything, like, and his work, and and yeah, so this was all happening at a very weird time in my life. I was partying it up. I had a reputation as like, yeah, a very like a party animal, honestly. Like, I liked going out. I
You're
liked,
the leader of the party pack.
yeah, being cool or whatever. And then I found that identity was restricting my full expression. And so I almost had to, like, destroy my old self to be reborn as my new self. And I I don't know, there's a lot of beauty in that, of like I feel like we do it many, many times throughout our lives. We die off and are reborn, but I was lucky enough to, in the process, I think, recognize how cool it all was, that, like, that we define what is cool to us, that we don't need to rely on these archetypes that are sold to us intentionally to try to control us. What the coolest thing you could do is to reject all the archetypes that are thrown at you and to just be yourself unapologetically, as authentically as possible. And so
And the best way you can do that is, it's like we have, if you take like an auric field and there's just an eye on every 360 degree, and every 360 degree point has another 360 degree. All of those have a different eye, a different perspective, a different insight. And it seems like society will almost fog them, and it slightly blinds us from all the different ways that we could be growing as an energetic body and spirit body complex. And when we allow ourselves to just kind of wipe those eyes clean, slowly with the spiritual Windex, that's what allows us to fully reawaken, and what you're doing with Pyramid Realm, it's gathering a community they all have Windex bottles, and they're all different, and they're all
yeah,
working, spraying each other in their eyes.
yeah, we're helping each other understand ourselves better.
Yeah.
We're guiding each other back home, and that's what we're here for. At least part of what we're here for. I think we have a long, wild mission ahead of us, and I I don't think we know the full extent of how wild it's going to be, but
Or
it's
how wild it is right now, and we
it
just
already
can't perceive
yeah,
it.
it's definitely a crazy time to be alive. And that's another reason I wanted to start this podcast, is to talk about current events and have discussions in a way that, like, that Twitter doesn't accommodate, for how in depth I want to go in this podcast, and the technical people I want to bring on, and the spiritualists, the philosophers, like I'm excited to see where it goes. And also just to, yeah, let people in to meet us more visually. You get a better idea for someone's energy, and yeah. So I guess so we kind of got a little bit off track, but yeah. So sophomore, junior year, I started the company, and uh, I became obsessed. I'm a very obsessive person when I become passionate about something. I fixate on it until I see it, because that's how manifestation works. And I think I always knew that at some level, but then the more I studied, the more I researched, the more I started to view my own mind as the investment, like I stopped worrying about what's outside of me and started viewing like my own consciousness as the project, like every new book is an investment in me. Every time I listen, like find new music, and just I started to view the expansion of my own consciousness as an investment in my business, because I started to realize that the outside world becomes a reflection of our inner world, and if we can get right within that'll manifest out into our life. And so for a good year and a half, I went on that quest, and I got super into studying. First, I had a few really cool psychedelic experiences that definitely opened my eyes and showed me some things I knew within, but helped shift my perspective to see this greater picture. And then I got really into aliens and entities and religious studies and spirituality. And I really liked this mentality of like not identifying with anything, or going into a book assuming that the author knows everything, but to take what resonates with me from everything, like to read the Kabbalah, the Zohar, like these mystical books with, and then mix in modern psychology, like, and just see what made sense to me, and almost like it was like I was helping myself remember the things I already knew.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, especially when I got into UFOs, I ended up having a couple of UFO experiences. And one of them especially, like, it was a triangle craft. And it wasn't more than like 2 months after I started the company and really started watching documentaries on UFOs and people and experiencers, and opening my mind to that reality that there is technology out there that, regardless of what you believe is flying the crafts, whether it's humans from other dimensions or green aliens, or whether like the thought projection, whatever, whatever works for you and makes sense to you, like the experience itself had such a profound impact on me, of, again, going back to like childhood wonder. Like it flew, like, I don't want to, it's hard for me to really like gauge, but it felt like it was 50, like less than 50 yards over my head. And I just remember like standing there in awe, and I told some friends, I don't even know, some of my friends think I've lost it, but yeah, it was just this really cool life shifting perspective where I felt like it was like my guides also giving me some affirmation of like, if we're going to ask you to really stand here and fight the battle for truth, that they at least showed me a couple things that I could experience physically. Because I'm a very, this, I'm esoteric in some aspects, but I'm also very exoteric. I like studying God through the outside world, through aesthetic,
God's creation.
Yes, through the creation that I am embedded in.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, from from the UFO experience, I just jumped in. Like,
I like that you mentioned that you said that whatever experience it was, that is something that was a necessary experience for you, no matter what it was, for you to then crack open new considerations for yourself that dove you deeper into something that you were already considering.
yes,
It was,
it was a catalyst kind of. It was
yeah,
like,
it was a catalyst. It was an electrical plug into something that was already charged. And it finally kind of like slunked in there so that you had something exoteric to plug into, something to light
yeah,
up.
I think I wanted an excuse to go rant about UFOs and conspiracies and live in my purpose. And having that like firsthand experience helped me get more comfortable in my own skin and speaking my truth and yeah, and taking my position along the truther battlefields of Twitter, you know. And then so yeah, that kind of takes us into senior year, and by then I knew I didn't want to do anything with engineering, so my head was pretty much entirely in the business. But I decided to get my degree partially to prove that I could. I think that ended up being a very deciding factor, because I remember calling my mom like in the middle of junior year. I think it was right after my UFO experience, and being like, "Mom, I'm not passionate about engineering. My classes bore me. I really struggle to stay focused, but I don't want to be ADHD and get on a bunch of pills." And she was kind of like, "You're so close, you might as well." And I've never been a quitter, so I was like, "Fuck quitting, I'm so close." And then I kind of also viewed it as like leverage. Like, part of my mission with Pyramid Realm is I want to talk about education reform on a massive scale, you know, of like the world that we're being prepared for through the education system is not the world that we're entering. And people are starting to realize that, both both the employers and the people coming out of the school system, because these big companies don't even care about your degree anymore, because they're realizing how disconnected it is with reality and with what it takes to be a contributing member of society or a creative problem. So I take great issue with the education system, but I thought, what better way to position myself to talk about education reform than to go all the way through it, to not to not stop 75% of the way through, but to get my degree in the sciences too, in mechanical engineering. And I got the renewable energy, because that's another thing that I'm personally really passionate about. Is I think we're at a place in history where it's time to start like using our innovation and our genius as a species and our creativity to find new ways to live in harmony with the earth. Because that, like, the earth is more powerful than all of these constructs that we build and then we live by. You know, like, we make shit up and then we treat it as though like it is law, when really like a much more fundamental law is the earth that you came from, you know. Uh so yeah, I was like, I'm definitely team earth in all of this. And that's another thing that was frustrating for me in my degree. Is I always knew I cared about the environment. You know, I grew up camping, national parks. And so when I got into engineering, I was like, the idea that pulled me to it is like, you could like invent something that then makes like society better and more capable of living in harmony with the earth. Like, you could develop the next renewable energy, the next whatever, the water powered car. What, I had all these ideas, and then I was frustrated by like the lack of, like, you're not really encouraged to go invent new things as an engineer. You're encouraged to like deconstruct things that already exist and then learn how to do pipe flow and build whatever the models in SolidWorks and all that. But yeah, my frustration also then came with like the things that are holding us back from this vision that so many of us share of humans living in harmony with the earth and taking care of our mother is not that the technology isn't there. Like that's a misconception. The technology is there. It's the political gridlock that stops like these competing industries that represent the future from like you have the oil industry, right? And so much of the power of this world is held in the oil industry that when you have new technology coming in that challenges these existing industries,
They try to buy it out and then destroy.
they try to buy it out, they try to destroy it, and they kill. Like, this is the real world. They kill people
Yeah.
and they bury patents. And as I came to realize that this is how the world functions, I was like, it was frustrating, but I also found my passion because like that's wrong. That like that in a successful, highly functioning civilization, the
suppression of information that's going to help propel the society and civilization higher at a more efficient way, not only for, you know, a seemingly disillusioned society of what they think is good, but also for the planet and for a more astral point of view, a more cosmic point of view.
Because we need to have a conversation about what progress is. Because we accept these figures, the GDP and the unemployment and these numbers that they give to us. We accept these as the metric for what makes a civilization successful, when in reality, like if our society has self-destructive patterns that are not symbiotic with the earth, then like it is not going to succeed as a civilization. Like then we're headed towards destruction. And I think that's what so much of this awakening is, and the apocalypse and all, like a bunch of variations of the same inner feeling that so many people are having, is that we need to shift courses right now, that we need to use our voices, and we need to unite and organize and do what we can on an individual level, community level, to create change. And that's what I think we're going to witness over this next 4, 5, 6, whatever, however many years it takes. But we're going to watch people become disillusioned with politics. And
oh yeah, we're definitely even seeing that now, even during
the last debates.
Elections.
Come on.
It's so many veils are being pulled just on how much people are annoyed with, you know, all the spam emails that they're getting from the political parties, you know.
I swear I get called like 4 times a day for some like political candidate. I like the local ones. I'm at least I'll hear them out and I'll show some support. But yeah, on the grander scale of the 2-party system, I think it's dead.
It's definitely dead in the way that we've decided to move it forward. And by we, I mean the people who have been in charge of it. It's definitely dead. And there's so many ways that we can maneuver it, in my opinion, to make it the way it was supposed to be, but even better. You know, taking the ideas that have been around since the Republic of Greece down to the Republic of America, and finding ways to adjust it to make it now fit to the society that we are moving into.
Yes, because it's good to also stay optimistic, I think, because it's really easy to focus on all the things that are wrong with society without recognizing that at different points in history there have always been struggles and suffering and things,
rises and falls of civilization, but there's always been a new world that will come out.
Exactly.
And that's what revolution, and that's what, you know, everyone thinks that there's an apocalypse coming, and I think it's simply just a change and a death of an old world, and it doesn't mean that there's going to be a physical like death per se. It's going to be a conscious one. And you either shift or die. You face the fire or you die. Like, you have to keep moving. You have to keep adapting. um, there's there's little choice there. It's just nature, you know.
Evolve,
And to
evolve
be
our
part of that society, to move forward with it is so important. And to help shift gears of which way we're going to make the new world be is such a responsibility of people who have the eyes to see it and know how to reach a community to make moves, you know.
Yeah, and that's one thing I also realized in the process is having the eyes to see it comes with responsibility. Like like when I cut a deal with the universe that I wanted to be shown truth, you know, regardless of what illusions in myself it would shatter. Like I don't know if I fully understood like the call to action that came with it because
Yeah.
we're in such a pivotal moment in time that if you can see what's happening, if you can see the timeline split and the different like everything from full on dystopia to an abundance and utopia, like these timelines are being formed and you fuel which timeline, like you vote with your energy is in and what you fuel and where you spend your money and what you align with and the words you use and how you interact with people. Like that's the new voting. Like
Hmm.
that's influence. That's creating the change you want to see in the world. And yeah, and this whole transition was something that it was one of the first things that hit me in my awakening was like I started studying these cycles and the
You also got a good point of view on all of the things that are in the background of our civilization. Engineering is the backbone of the whole structure of our world that we live in. And you getting that perspective allowed you to see what needed to change, you know. And if you didn't go through those exact life circumstances, then you wouldn't have came to the conclusions necessary to get you to where you are.
yeah and yeah I take digs on my education, but I learned a lot from engineering, like about creative problem solving. And that's what I real like that's another thing I realized is I was like we like our government is beyond inept. Like if you could wrap your head around the amount of taxpayer dollars that they are working with,
Hmm.
like
How much they're not really doing anything with it
and like just
in a productive
allowed
way.
your imagination to just to as a mental exercise start brainstorming things in your own mind like oh, I want like if I had $2 million, like what could I do to make this country a better, safer, healthier, more awesome place to live? Like I could come up with some really cool engineering innovative solutions.
That would be a good investment that would only perpetuate more money for everyone, more
Totally
success, more money,
creates,
you know. But like
creates a
the creative perpetuality of it all would only succeed if everyone had a real say in how those tax dollars were spent, for example.
totally.
Potentiality is endless.
And there's so many smart people, there's so many geniuses and visionaries that are alive on this earth right now in this country that the like the real the game for me is to empower the right people like that. And that's what's so backwards I think about the capitalist system is we've developed systems in which to be successful you often like to be successful you often have to sell out the things that truly matter to you, you know. And that is dangerous to our culture, to our civilization. If you have like there's always going to be tech geniuses and there's always going to be architecture geniuses and everyone has a right to pursue their dreams. And so it's not about demonizing people that are successful, you know, like Steve Jobs and innovators of industry. But what we need is we need to or like to reward people based on progress instead of greed, you know, to have some common concepts and to open up dialogue about what progress means, but to have some idea of where we want to go as a civilization, and then to identify the people that have the skill sets to fill into these roles,
Hmm.
and then empower them to be the best version of themselves. And in doing that, you make the world better for everyone, you know. And I think you also make people happier. Like, I think deep down people want to serve humanity, they want to serve this planet and the humans that are here experiencing it with them. Like, it's just that when people can feel like they have to choose between personal success and their morality, then we put people in a tricky situation. So that's, I think, one thing
They
that
feel like they are forced to have to sacrifice.
yes, we need to remedy that. And I see it, it's already happening. Like, that's like everything's becoming decentralized, and I don't know as much as I should about Bitcoin and that world, but that's where it's going. Is we're disempowering the banks, and the more people wake up, the more people realize that a dialogue on YouTube like this is as relevant and pertinent as the presidential debate, if not more so, you know. And that that everyone has a voice, and that anyone can make a YouTube channel or start a Twitter account, or and everyone has that right, and we should empower each other to go do that. Because
No matter what their source of intelligence is,
yes,
they could be incredible at fixing vehicles, and because of that, they can inspire everyone to not only know how to fix their own vehicle, but also be able to have an inspiration to make a different vehicle. Maybe something in their video about how they did something with a particular part inspired them to then make a completely new transportation device from that single idea, from a single video, from a single an original purpose that was no longer what was being
totally.
its service for, you know.
You have
Everyone has a voice, like you said, and that voice is so crucial, and people don't realize that. You know, people think that, oh, you know, I don't have an education, and or I don't know much about this kind of topic, but I do know about, you know, agriculture, like I'm a farmer, you know, so what could I really offer to these people? You can offer people sustainability, you know, and they don't even realize that how intelligent their intelligence lies. And because of the society that we build ourselves in, and those blocks that we've set up for ourselves, and the standards of the civilization that we're in, all the eyes that we're fogging, it's we forget just how incredible and synchronized, you know, the reason why they built their intelligence the way it is in that very moment, and how much it can help, you know, everyone who wants to listen, you know, if they're willing to speak.
Yeah, totally. And that's another thing, like, that I wanted to be a part of, is like, I think it's a very tricky battleground to take a stand in the truther community, because I think it's important to admit and accept your own uncertainties, and that you're also in a forever process of discernment and aligning closer with the truth, but to use your voice in a way that you speak your truth, uh, authentically, unapologetically, but that part of your message is intended to challenge people to speak their truth. You know, like that's something I found myself doing a few times earlier on in the process. Is I was like, I don't necessarily know if this is 100% right, but like, I'm gonna put it out there, and at least it challenges people to challenge me, to
And
like,
challenge themselves.
to, okay, if you disagree with this, then formulate a response, a dialogue back from your perspective of
Hmm.
how you see things, and then that benefits both of us, because then I can see things from a greater perspective. And
Hmm.
see where you're coming from, and we can both learn in that moment. And that's I think the positive side of social media and Twitter, and how interconnected the internet world is. That
It brings together people from every kind of world, any timeline that people could be on.
Yeah, I mean, I built my whole business like off Twitter. We have 15, I think, 16 small businesses and artists now that we feature, all of which, like, especially the creators themselves that do the products, like the soaps and the lotions and teas and jewelry. Everyone that I came across that we sell, we resonated first on the message.
Mm.
Like our heads were in the same place, and then almost as an afterthought, I'm like, oh, like you're selling products, you have a craft, you contribute something, and then let's get into business together. Let help me get you exposure, help me grow out your small business, and let's collectively work together to achieve financial freedom doing what we're passionate about. Because I think that's what everyone really wants. People want money, but more than money, they want the freedom that comes with money.
They want the comfortable life that we all know is possible. And in order to do that in the society that we live in, financial stability is important and financial comfortability is important. Allowing us to do that, giving us a platform to do this through the things that we already enjoy doing, the passions that were given to us naturally, that we succeed in because we're drawn to them and we produce them, being able to do that and be able to live our lives the way that we want to is only going to further us down the line of the civilization that we're trying to build.
Yes. Yes. Because, like, I honestly, like, the vision I have of this world is like it's it's beyond even government. Like, there's always gonna be, and I think it's healthy too. There's gonna be like some systems in place that help logistically manage and assist our society. Like, the government itself is not an innately negative thing, that, like,
No.
we need some type of organization. But more than that, like, where I see the heart of this civilization is, like, there's all these seeds out there, which are the people. Like, the people are the seeds. And I see a world being built by entrepreneurs and creators and dreamers
Schemers.
and schemers. And for better, for worse, there's the Elon Musks of the world, who are going to develop AI merged consciousness. And all of a sudden, like, you're going to see Black Mirror is going to start, like, you're going to start seeing ads for shit you saw in Black Mirror, and you're going to start seeing, like, I just watched this show, Upload, that's all about, like, this artificial heaven that they construct, that upon your death you can pay some premium service, whatever, to, like, shoot your consciousness into the prime heaven slots where you live out in, like, and like, it personally, it makes my stomach turn, but, like, it's real. Like, this is where we're headed. And so yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to get honest with yourself about your own consciousness, about, and taking sovereignty over it. What do you want to do? Do you, like, where, like, you got to get real with yourself, and kind of soon, because the world we're entering into is going to be one in which it's a free world. It really is. Like, if you want to experience freedom, you're going to be free. I like that's the way I see it, I guess, is that I think people will have many opportunities to choose freedom, but overwhelmingly people are going to leave their jobs and all these constructs, and they're just gonna align with what's within them and what's happening within them, and awaken into the people they want to be in this new civilization, and they'll experience dystopia as long as it takes for them to decide they don't want to experience that, and then they'll shift timelines, and it's all
Mhm.
going to be happening on top of itself, which should make for, like, I don't know, at least good entertainment.
I mean, no matter the focused or fractalized reality that we could be finding ourselves in, it's more that concept of us like finding ourselves in a form, whether it's human, whether it's like whatever you want to say this
Yeah.
experience is, the timeline that we find ourselves in, whether or not it's, if we find ourselves in a dystopian way, we eventually will learn enough lessons to realize that we can find a better way. And that is a lesson, whether it be in this physical reality, in this density. It's been going on for eons. That is a constant pattern that has been going on, whether it's even just the evolution of the cosmos. If it's not working, if something is not building in a way that is sustainable for the universe to continue, it evolves and it makes something new so that it is no longer a dystopian concept of an idea of existence. And so that concept has been going on forever. And to be a part of that is, it's a constant lesson. And it's never going to stop, because as we evolve, there's new problems to new solutions.
And it's a blessing.
Yeah.
Like that, and that's something that very few people, I think, understood in my life when I was going through it all and doing research and real, like, because it's already dystopian. Like, if we're being honest, like the government as it is right now, like, we're already living in a dystopioid society. And
And those concepts were planted the
yes,
way that we're seeing dystopian. Those concepts were planted decades ago.
before we were alive,
Concepts were centuries ago that had
and,
been feeding into us and to our
totally.
society.
And now, like, but what's so cool, I guess, about it is, like, it's frustrating, but it's also like for me, for every ounce of, like, frustration or anger or whatever that I experience, it's like all of it, it's also, you realize you now have an opportunity to play a role in history. Like once you identify the problems and are brave enough to find your voice, like you like in this moment, like you have the opportunity to live a life of unbelievable adventure and meaning and purpose, and to leave a better world off for your kids, and to uh, like tell some crazy stories about how you stood up in the middle of the e-web World War III dystopia whatever and spoke your truth. And that's a beautiful thing, regardless of whether we have the exact same truths and whether we agree on everything. Just your calling to go stand up and to say, I will be heard, I will have my voice counted, and I will use my will in the collective to manifest that which I want to experience, the world that I want to pass down to my kids. Like, you're
And
there.
so that not only just your kids, but your kids' great grandchildren, I want them to also be talking
Yeah.
about how this has inspired them to create the world that they live in that moment.
And yeah, and that's, like, how could you not care? I
It's
I
just
feel like
the blinders, just a bunch of horse blinders, focused on different parts of the society that they feel like are the most crucial for them. And that's what makes people feel like they can't care. It's not even a matter if they do, because I feel like ultimately they all do, but it's a matter of can they feel that they actually have power to change anything. And that's where the disillusionment in our society is really in a spawn.
and I think we're also sold to an extent, like especially as a male, at least my experience is it's not cool to care. Like we're sold this archetype of what a cool guy is, and it's someone who doesn't care about and like I think that one thing that helped me in just going all in and deciding, I do care about where humanity is, not even just the America, but I care about this race, where we're headed, where our future is, what kind of relationships we're building with the planet, with our animals and whatnot. Like I do care. And I I think that's half the battle is we need to like alter people's perception of what cool is, like really challenge that and break the mold. And yeah, that's what we're here to do. That's what Pyramid Realm is all about. And I guess do you want to jump into your story?
Yeah, totally.
All right, awesome.
Um, yeah, so I grew up in about 200 acres of land, just being able to do whatever I want and hope that I don't die along the way because of whatever natural, you know, character is going to be on that land, like coyotes. This is in Texas, by the way. So there's rattlesnakes, there's giant spiders, there's weird animals and the creatures of the night that are ready to kill you just because they like to survive as well. So growing up with that atmosphere and constantly being in the water because I was a swimmer, and so having those two experiences um, really opened me up to respecting nature. It really opened me up to what I'm going to consider God is just the reality that we find ourselves in at any given moment. Finding the respect for that and learning to live with it in harmony and not using it as some sort of stepping tool to like get something that I want, but rather using it so that we can both get something out of it. So I'd make forts out in the woods, but I'd use certain materials that would fertilize, what's around me, so I'd be healing the earth while I'm,
My
making a little camp in it.
my fort game is pretty strong, Ella.
I'm excited to see it.
Lots of experience.
Yeah, it's so fun to be able to work with the planet, because you were saying earlier there's just so much power in the life of our planet alone. You can't help but to respect it and see the awe, of all the atmospheres and situations that our planet could have put us in. It gave us beautiful air to breathe and nature that will heal us and nurture us and make us stronger. And it's incredible. So growing up with that sort of atmosphere was a great experience, and having family there as well was really nice. I realize now, I think I came to this conclusion maybe about 2 weeks ago, that if I'm going to describe my childhood religious experience, my family raised me pretty Messianic Jewish. And, we did all the rituals, we had Shabbat, there was Jewish memorabilia and in garb everywhere in my home. Even in my nursery, there were shalom, like doves everywhere. So it's very, very Jewish. And so, of course, if you're looking at traditional Judaism and not Messianic Judaism, you see a massive connection between science and God. And you see that in the Kabbalah. So that's one example of how I grew up. And so that was interesting. But I did have a lot of unexplained experiences as a child, some being still in question of what in the world I went through. And I look forward to the day or not day that I finally get to see what it was that I actually experienced. For example, this one I don't have too many questions about because it seemed pretty straightforward. I was laying in bed at about 7 years old, and I was praying about something, just, taking my moment with God with my eyes closed before bed. And all of a sudden, I am shooting through space, and I look around to see my body, and my body is blue and long, and my body looked awesome. I was so like ripped and cool looking, but I was so tall. I looked like I was like 8 or 9 feet tall, just really long body, just super lean and cut. I look so hot. And I'm
Like an avatar person.
for real, like it was that same color blue. It was a little bit darker, I'll be
Yep.
honest. It was a little bit darker, just a deep indigo blue. And I'm going through space, and eventually I find where I'm supposed to go, and I lean in and I fall into the building, graceful. Like I like literally like fall, and then my feet just kind of like grace the ground, and it's so nice. Just kind of like seamlessly get in. And there's other people around me that look exactly like I did. And they are, that very dark blue. They have these really elongated heads that go like that. And I'm like 7, so I don't know anything about any of this.
Advanced
And
society right there.
yeah. And they all surround me, and they all just take a knee in front of me and around me. And I felt so good to be home. The feeling, I even remember saying it in my head, I was like, man, it feels good to be home. Wow, like I missed this. and then I immediately snap back into my body, and I'm very confused as, a young girl, growing up reading only, I wasn't allowed to listen to anything that wasn't really what Christians would consider okay. I was allowed to watch a lot of things. Definitely nothing to do with magic, nothing to do with things like that. So I had no idea what I had just witnessed. But around, I guess around like 2014, 2015, I realized that that was a common being that other people have seen before. So I was no longer thinking, man, kooky young person, me, making up these beings that I've never had any reference to even make them up from person. But now I'm seeing that it was actually connecting to something else. And there were times when I'd have these dreams that seemed to completely transform my waking life. So I'd have a dream where I wake up in my dream and I look to see what time it is. And there'd be a very common frequency that would happen in these dreams. It would be a low frequency, like a low, like wah, 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 like this humming that I still don't really know what's going on. Well, I don't know what that's all about. But when I knew that humming, I go, oh no, here we go again. Like something's about to happen. That was like my signal that something was going on. And the clock starts to levitate and starts to slowly spin around, and it's still connected to the wall. So the cord's getting all tight. And this like neon blue fluorescent light just fills my bedroom. And there's a turbulence that's incredibly fast, and it's just spinning everything. The posters I had stapled to my wall are now peeling off the wall. Yes, I stapled them, and they were peeling off the wall. It was so strong. And I'm freaking out, clearly, because I've never even experienced anything like that before, even in a movie. Like I was allowed to watch anything like that. So seeing anything levitate was already just mind-blowing. Seeing that things could float was already mind-blowing.
It sounds like poltergeist activity.
It sounds like something is trying, like putting a beam in my room and like like sucking me up or something. I don't know. And so I was freaking out. I hear this humming and I don't know where it's coming from. And the only thing I knew what to do was to speak in the name of Jesus to wake up, because clearly it must have been a dream. And so I try to speak, and it's hard. And eventually, when I finally do be able to speak, I had to physically move, and I had to force myself to physically wake up. And I open my eyes, and everything is normal. So I figure, oh, it was just a dream. But as soon as I open my eyes, I'm about 2 feet away from my bed, and about 3 feet, so bed, and 2 feet above where my bed was. I I can't physically throw myself like that. Like even in my dream, like waking up, like I couldn't possibly, you know? So
Yeah.
that was weird. Anyways, I face planted on the floor and that was fun. But that's how I woke up from that dream,
Wow.
which was great.
Hell
But
of a dream.
huh?
I said hell of a dream.
Right? And I mean, I was like, what, 8 years old? And so things like that would happen. Or I remember in 4th grade, I was drawing and I drew a lady, she's just a face, like profile, and I made half of her face just in randomly. I said, you know what? I'm going to make half of her face a lizard woman. So half of her face was green and scaly. Her mouth was like cut open, sharp teeth, like like the slit eyes, and her eyes were yellow, like the eye, like everything. And then it was green. She had no hair, like on this side, and then this side she looked like a normal lady. And as I was drawing it, I was disturbing myself. I said, this is weird and wrong, but somehow I need to share this. There's a reason why I need to put this out, because I'm finding comfort in getting this out on paper right now. And I don't know why, but it's scaring me, but I need to get it out. So I finish it. I'm like, this is horrifying. And I'm like 4th grader, like, and I'm horrifying myself. And so I closed the book to not show anyone, because I knew,
Like, check out this lizard person.
yeah, it's like,
I've tried starting conversations with the lizard people, and you gotta ease into the lizard. Can't
you
jump.
really gotta take that concept slow. But yeah, it was really disturbing to me, and I didn't know why. It was comforting for me to put it down on paper, for me to visualize it. It was cathartic. And a year later, I actually showed my best friend, to get some sort of affirmation that it wasn't that scary. Unfortunately, she started crying. So I tore it up and I threw it away, and I never wanted to think about it again. But then around the same time that I was realizing that those blue people that I met when, like, earlier on in my life, when I was like in 1st grade or whatever, um, that also, like, reptilian people were a thing that people also talk about.
Yeah.
So that was also a form of comfort, knowing that I wasn't just pulling this out of my ass.
And I think that's how a lot of art works. And like, I think there are a lot of artists that do it like not even fully conscious of what they're doing. But when we tap into our imagination, we're tapping into, I guess, what you could call God's will. We're tapping into
that's the source of where everything is already at.
Totally. So
time is limitless, and time isn't even there. So it's all the data crunched to a single dimension of everything. And if you like flow into a certain frequency of it, you're going to pick up something.
Totally. I think Picasso said that everything you can imagine is real.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that wherever you wander off, when you drift into your imagination, that you're essentially like exploring other dimensions of the universe that exist.
You made it exist by thinking about it. That alone makes it exist.
Totally.
Real. So yeah, so there were a lot of dreams like that, to be short. We can always have a podcast specifically on dreams, but I'm gonna leave it right there right now, because there was a lot of
dreams, I think we deserves its own full-on hour podcast.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff there. Yeah. So having those kind of dreams definitely woke me up at a young age, because it made me question everything I'd ever experienced. Because I was experiencing things that I never even experienced before and didn't know could even happen. And so that definitely opened up a few eyes for me. So at a young age, I was already questioning, well, what's real if I'm seeing things that don't exist in my world, and I was definitely that kind of child where I was already very articulate. Like, I was already talking by age 2. I remember doing social experiments with people at age 1, because I was still in one of those rocker seats, with the, you carry things, and then they hang things and you play with it like this.
You've got better memory than I do.
Well, this is like the only memory I have at that age, really. But I remember sitting in the carriage thing, and I'm at my house, and my parents have some friends over, and I remember this one of the people there, he had on this 1990s turquoise shirt, like that classic 90s color turquoise, just a solid color t-shirt, some tortoise glasses on. He walks up to my little carriage and he's trying to make me laugh. He's trying to stimulate me to bring out, like, to make sure I'm still alive and still kicking, and so he goes up to me and he's like trying to do like all the baby things, and I recognize what he's doing. And I say to myself, how long can I make him do this if I don't respond the way he wants me to? So I sat back and I kicked back. And I sat there and watched him do all the things he could possibly think of to make me laugh, to make me giggle.
That's such a
And
woman thing to do. You guys are playing games with us. By the time you're 1 year old, you're trying to make us like dance around for your ending.
Come on, clown. Let me hear your nose honk. So I definitely found a lot of insight in that moment. And, eventually I realized that I should probably let him out of my grasp. So I gave like a little and then he sat aside and then walked away. And I said, well, that's exactly how I thought that was going to go. Like, he just wanted me to laugh and then he'd be done, and I'm sitting there as a fly in the wall watching all these adults do things and they don't realize they're being watched, and I'm able to watch them. So definitely from that perspective. Anyways, I was the kind of child who was articulate at a young age. And when older adults would try to talk to me and they talk to me in that, that little patronizing kind of voice.
Yeah, I know.
And I just kind of give a dart of eyes to my parents, like, do you really want me to like? And they kind of go, don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And I just like blast out a full, a whole statement, that's insightful and cute at the same time. And the adult is kind of like, oh, like, you're so young, you shouldn't be understanding me the way that I'm actually talking to you right now. So that was always fun, but it definitely put a certain disassociation on how I viewed people, and definitely how I was able to then people watch and be able to experience the human experience from a different perspective of objectivity. And so by age 4, I started going into live theater performance. And so I was always on stage and watching the contrast of someone living their normal life to someone pretending that they're living a normal life, and seeing the difference between someone acting in their most authentic way, and then seeing someone pretend that they're authentic, and seeing those contrasts and seeing, these people, how they walked when they thought no one was watching versus how they walked when they knew people were there, and seeing, as a 4-year-old, you're a fly on the wall and you can observe so much. And it was so wonderful to get that point of view on everything. And mixing that with like artistic expression and being able to speak for yourself, learn your lines for yourself, because when you're on stage, no one's going to say anything and it's only you to carry the story. At 4 years old, you realize responsibility and you realize how fun it is to be able to create the reality that you want on stage, and how much it's going to affect, hundreds of people that are watching you in those moments, because they're following along with the story that you are giving them. So lots of lessons there at a 4-year-old.
Sounds like you had a Jim Carrey type revelation where you play enough roles, you start to question the nature of our role in existence itself.
Oh yeah. 4 years old, I was already hitting like a human experience and understanding that. And it was such great research, like if I'm going to play this kind of character, like watching someone that already acts like that in real life, how do they walk? How do they talk? What do they eat? Like, what's going on inside their brain that's making the physical vessel that they live through and perceive reality through?
I definitely have a few like characters that I've seen in different movies or TV shows that I picked up a few things from, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll draw inspiration from how this character, because I don't know, that's another thing that's so cool about being awake in the dream world, is that you can create your own character, you can build it out, you can decide for
Here's
yourself.
your own adventure for sure.
You can decide for yourself where you want to develop, and yeah, how you want to move and how you want to dress and expect. Like, you have the control to, if you live intentionally, to take charge of all of that and turn
Mhm.
your life into like a meaningful creative expression that makes life better for other people.
Mhm. That's exactly right. And that's one thing I really like. You know, people always are smashing down Hollywood because there's so much corruption in it, of course. But the main concept that Hollywood can bring the public, you know, if it's done right and it's done with integrity, the amount of knowledge that can then be distributed throughout the public is incredible. You know, um, if it's done right, it can really, you know, change the world. So there's a lot of great things that can come out of something that may have taken a wrong turn, you know, 100 years ago or something, when that form of media started coming around and people realized that they can manipulate it for other
The
reasons.
power of subliminal messaging. I actually took a class on that that talked about how at the start of the movie industry in the United States, it was a predominantly female run thing because it was viewed as kind of like
Sewing
a
hobby.
cute, crafty, like artsy thing. And then they kind of realized like, oh shit, like you have the power to subliminally program people's behavior and therefore control all of society. And then the men were kind of like, oh, we'll take it from you. Yeah, like, and and yeah, I think we're seeing a shift back to better archetypes and more interesting storylines. I've noticed in the media I've been consuming lately and the movies I've been watching, I try to be somewhat intentional about what I expose myself to, but there is good there's good content out there that can spark insights within yourself. And as long as, like, if you view things with your own discernment, and then yeah, the movies are fun. And
Oh
so yeah,
yeah.
Hollywood isn't all bad, but they
Right.
definitely have some schmucks hidden amongst them.
Oh yeah. And it's so interesting. It's so interesting how almost everything, no matter what kind of form of media it is, I feel like there's always a lesson you can learn from it. You know, it could be an incredibly base storyline, you know, meant for like what some would call a base audience, you know, and still there's such a deep lesson in there if you're able to find it. And it just, to me, that just depends on where you are in your life and where you are introspectively,
Yeah,
that you can be able to pull things out of anything and be able to use it to your advantage in a way that is constructive and productive.
yeah. I like to like think like this, even when I'm listening to songs or especially watching movies or TV, that like I don't want it, like, you don't want it to be a one-way streak, like a one-way where you're just consuming information and you're like you want to be having your own internal dialogue with the content that you are watching.
Hmm.
Because then, like, okay, if you're watching a character and they make a decision it that doesn't represent your highest values or whatever, you can like see their thought process and decide for yourself how you would do things differently and whatever. And be, if you're present and using discernment when you're watching it, then you can use it can be a learning experience. Whereas if you're just sitting there consuming it, then you're basically being programmed on how to think.
Hmm.
And you're saying that you're allowing yourself like, okay, if I'm ever in this situation, this is the correct way to respond. However, this movie, monkey see, monkey do, monkey, and that's, you have to break out of that with intentionality. In
Hmm.
so yeah, so it's not all about like, and I think people get in this trap where they just want to blame things on someone. And Hollywood's as good a scapegoat as any. Hollywood and the banks are pretty good, but ultimately, like, where the empowerment is in yourself and in
And how you receive any kind of information, no matter where it's coming from, whether it's in the presence that is existing in front of you or if it's something that is on another device presenting itself to you. How you respond and how you receive any sort of information that is now thrown your way is up to you, no matter what the kind of information it is.
Totally.
And that just goes to show that if you're connected with yourself and you know your own internal sovereignty, the most corrupt information could be thrown your way, and you can still use it for something that still betters everything.
Yes.
Um, and that just goes down to people being aware enough to realize their power within receptivity of any sort of information. So to skip through a couple of decades, or not a couple decades, but a decade of my life of mostly just weird dreams that we'll get to later. I got to high school, I did musical theater, I did a internationally competitive indoor drumline, I did marching band, I did improv, I did student leadership. I was busy. I worked 3 jobs as well. So I was barely home. I was always working. And I had multiple lives. I had multiple things going on. And it only added to my multifaceted ability to be in any sort of, for me, it was able to open up new worlds for me and open up new parts of myself.
Mhm.
And that was incredible. Around my junior year, I started having more unexplained experiences. um, so those will definitely be shared in the dream world episode as well. But those were pretty pivotal for me because I'm starting to think that they weren't actually dreams. So more and more, day by day, things are becoming more clear, which is always great. So for college, I got my degree in ancient civilizations and the fine arts, focusing in on cultural heritage. So my freshman year, I also founded the Philosopher's Society for my university at University of Texas at Dallas. And that opened up a lot of doors for the university as well. We were able to get a philosophy minor established for the school, which wasn't available before. So that was awesome to be able to be a part of opening that world for people academically, for them to have that choice for that school, which is great.
I think
Um,
we talked about this as just such a good representation of who we are and how similar but different we were. That you had started a philosophical community, like run, like organized and official through the school, and then I, like, my senior year was hosting, quote, woke Wednesdays for a bunch of frat boys, which basically involved us either baking cookies or ordering some food and then getting super baked and just trying to figure out the universe in my bedroom, but that we're both called to the same essence, which is that we wanted to facilitate
bring
the kind
people
of conversation.
together. Yeah, exactly, and facilitate that kind of conversation. And the thing is you're right. We did the exact same thing through a different way. So you went the casual, cool, conversational, um, like community that way, and I went through the casual, cool, academic. Let me pull in students and professors from across the nation, and let's have some symposiums.
Yeah,
Let's get some
yours
conversations going.
seems more legitimate than my woke Wednesdays.
Well, the thing is when you were hosting all of those parties and creating the atmospheres and creating the world that all of these people were now a part of, you were creating that world. You were the god of party. You were literally.
I like this so much, and yeah, it's I have a mixed relationship with alcohol now, but there's something beautiful about a party, and I found what I really enjoyed in throwing the parties was I liked bringing people together, and I liked, like, that helping people experience freedom and dance and get in touch with their spirit. And there's all these good parts of throwing a good party that I loved. And then I definitely had to rebalance my own lifestyle at one point where, yeah, at the start of my awakening, I was binge drinking 3-4 nights a week, just, and I had to start listening to my body. My body said, quit all nicotine devices, stop drinking that much, eat natural foods. And I just I trusted my body and continue to do so. and my body still says sometimes it's okay to get a little drunk with your friends, that it's
Hell yeah.
not the end of the world. But yeah, I think it's people like to oversimplify things, especially substances and drugs. And ultimately, I think the conclusion I came to is that it's your intention in using whatever. So, like, same with psychedelics. Like, if you take psychedelics in the wrong environment and with poor intentions, you're just trying to bug out or whatever, like, you're probably going to have a negative or like weird, not even negative necessarily, but a weird experience. Whereas if you take them with the intention of becoming more in touch with yourself and facing your own patterns and growing, then you're probably going to have a very positive experience. And same
Absolutely.
with alcohol. If you take it with the intention of letting loose and having fun with your friends, you can have that experience, and it can even bring down walls and help you have meaningful conversations.
Mhm.
Whereas I've also had experiences personally where I was drinking for the wrong reasons, where I was like frustrated with my life or with this or that, with this professor's bullshit. I'm tired of this, whatever this. I'm gonna get super fucked up. And it's a totally different experience. And I find myself like I find that is usually when I end up with or I ended up with blackouts or times where there's gaps in my memory. And that was a slap in the face for me in terms of getting it out of the relationship I once had with alcohol. Was I hated blackouts and still do. I hate the idea of losing control over your own consciousness, and that it's basically possession, that
Mhm.
you're not there. You're letting lower vibrational entities kind of pull your strings and control you, and that you're willingly doing it by consuming the
Yeah,
substance.
continuing to put things in your body that are allowing that access.
Yeah, so it's not about like not taking accountability when you're fucked up, but it's just like, yes, we got kind of off track, but substances are an interesting thing. I think we're
I
gonna
mean, it's
watch.
just like media. It's how you use it,
Yeah,
how you allow yourself to receive that information, and how you allow that to work for you and for everyone. But we got on that track of the power of those kind of influences
mhm,
by me saying how much of a party god you were, in the sense of not um, the way that you were able to bring people together, and the thoughtfulness that you had to put those certain things in that atmosphere. Like, what was it, the ball pit? You had
yeah,
like a ball
we
pit
did
at your
have a ball pit
function?
once.
Yeah, like those kind of considerations completely shape memories for these people that they'll have for the rest of their lives, you know? And that's definitely more sophisticated than a lot of people. I mean, I feel like a lot of people understand how sophisticated that creativity and consideration is. And you being like the leader, you were the party head of creating these events for everyone. That's incredibly important. You were streamlining these people's experiences. You were creating their world and their atmospheres.
Yeah,
You set up your own little planet. They were now able to release themselves and get together with their people, make communities, make memories, relax, do all the things that you're wanting to do now through a different outlet. But it was just in the same way. And my point is that we reached the same conclusion through different ways. And I
often the
think that it is pretty awesome. Yeah. So I did that for 4 years. I stayed doing theater and I sang in cafes as well, throughout my college experience, and did a lot of weird travels. I studied abroad in England, which was a great experience for me, just to be able to see the academic world from a different perspective, it's always great. And being able to see the world a little bit more, just due to the accessibility that Europeans have to see different cultures. So that was really great. And definitely had a lot more revelations in 2017. That was a big year for me. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of prayer. I did a lot of lucid dreaming. I did a lot of fasting. It was a very disciplined time for me, to really reconnect with my body and how my body was reacting to my atmosphere. And that was awesome. So definitely a lot of things there. I read a lot of the Law of One books in England as well. I brought the whole series
I ordered the first one. I have it.
Yay!
So I will begin my quest through the Law of One.
Oh, it's a journey. It's a journey.
I'm looking forward to it. I still got to finish I'm reading a fictional book right now, but I will jump into that and I'll keep you updated.
I want to send you this book. Oh, it's in my other library. But it's a book about the Law of the Mystic Masters by something J. Weed. And
I like the sound.
Yeah. Oh man, and the cover of it is so minimalistic. Maybe I can find it in here. Sacred wisdom of ancient masters or something like that. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Wisdom of the Mystic Masters. And it's like, you could tell that this book used to be white and now it's like super old. And so it's like beige. And it was only $2.45 at one point in time.
Wow.
Joseph J. Weed. Yeah.
Oh, I trust Mr. Weed, so.
Right? So I want to be able to mail you this, and so you can read it. And I think it'd be really interesting to have a discussion about a book or two at one point for, just even in passing for a podcast. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I've been even thinking of trying to organize some type of book club with the Twitter family where we try to read one book a month and then come together and have some communal conversation about it.
Oh yeah, I think that would be very, very constructive. So I'll make sure and try to mail that your way. Awesome. So after I graduated, my plan was to go get my master's in ancient history and go more of the anthropological, cultural heritage, archaeological route, somehow blending together philosophy, history in order to allow myself to find new outlets of creativity for my hobbies, which are music, which are theater, which are writing.
All right, awesome. Well, I will, let's call it right here, but this was a very successful first Pyramid Pod, and I'm excited to see who we got on the agenda. I know we got Deep Prasad, so we're going to be jumping into some alien stuff on the next episode.
Sweet.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll figure out more as we go with this whole podcast thing, but this was fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening, and we look forward to our next podcast.